Hi everybody, I'm Richard Conway. Welcome back to episode 2 of AMP, the podcast that showcases Agegroup Multisport athletes. First met in 2017 at our first race for GB, qualified to take part in the European Duathlon Championships in Soria, Spain. We've since kept in touch through multimedia, racing on Zwift, and we even went for a run when we were both on holiday in Lanzarote. We had the chance to meet up again this year when we both qualified again for this year's European Duathlon Championships, which took place in Punta Umbria, Spain. And we didn't realise at the time, but it was to be one of the last races to take place before the COVID virus took hold. I'll just say welcome along, Nick Price. Nice to see you. Going to go through, your background, where you started from and how you got into duathlon and multisport.
So I started when I was in middle school, because I'm old enough to have been in middle school, so I was at middle school between the ages of 11 and 13. When I was there, my mum often reminded me of the fact that my PE teacher said I'd never be any good at sport. And I seem to recall in a dim and distant memory that sort of got me dad on trying to get me into doing more sport. And then when I went on to secondary school, one of my best mates, he entered one of the boxing competitions, and I thought, there's no way I'm going to be a bloody boxer. So I thought I'll go training with him. So me and Mark used to go out running most evenings really as a 13, around the streets of Harzone. And it sort of took off from there really. And I thought, I'm reasonably half decent at this. So it started then doing some of the the school cross countries. And I mean, the level of competition in the school cross countries was quite high. But I had a disastrous first cross country race where I actually came last. And I came last because I thought I was somewhere towards the lead because I'd lost a spike, lost one of my shoes, got redirected the wrong way. I thought I was in the lead, and just found out I had another lap to do. So that was like a disastrous one of my first cross country races. And then progressed on from there to obviously then going to college and doing reasonably okay then, and then joined Harzone Athletics Club when I was about 18 and 19, and that was where I got a real interest from it really.
And did you do mainly track, or was it road, or was it just a mixture of everything?
Well, when I was 18, I did the London Marathon.
Right.
Because at the time when, so that was 1988. That was at the time when the London Marathon, as it is now, was just massive, wasn't it? But I think because it was such a new thing, I managed to get an entry into that and did that when I was 18, and then started running with Harzone and started doing more track stuff really. And it's one of these things, isn't it? You always wonder what your best distance would be. What was the optimum distance that you're going to be? So I'd never be a sprinter, would I? I'm 5. I started doing track and cross country, and then moved up to Aberdeen for 5 or 6 years up there, and joined Metro Aberdeen Running Club, and that was really, really good. And then probably got into multisport just by chance more than anything else. I started to, as a kid, you'd always cycle, wouldn't you? Because you just cycled everywhere as a child. Yeah. You cycle to school. You cycle with your mates at the weekend. You just potted around on your ruddy chopper or your ruddy grifter was the way that it went, wasn't it? And then,
remember it well.
And that was it, wasn't it? You had those little 3 on the ruddy grifter. I think you change gears.
Weren't they heavy bikes though, those grifters?
Do you remember?
Yeah, they're like lead. I never had one. My mate had one, and it was like a lump of lead. I remember trying to pick it up.
It'd be surprised, wouldn't it, to see what the difference now between those bikes would have been. And then my first racing bike was a Coventry Eagle.
All right.
Which was, and if you look at those on eBay now, they're going for several £100, because they're obviously an in-demand old bike, aren't they? So after sort of just cycling recreationally, really, bought myself a cheap road bike from Decathlon, stuck a set of tri-bars on the front and started doing a few duathlons. And then it was at the Hereford Duathlon several years ago. How many years ago? That'd be probably 4 or 5 years
Yeah, I was
ago.
going to say, when was your first sort of like race, and what was it?
So my first duathlon races would have been the Castle Coombe series down in Wiltshire.
Yeah.
So that was like a midweek series of races to do down in Wiltshire. I mean, that, which is a heck of a long way to go from the West Midlands down to Wiltshire of an evening. But it's because they weren't, it just wasn't as popular sort of 6-7 years ago.
Yeah.
So it was sort of several laps around the track at Castle Coombe, and then on the bike, and likewise with the run around the perimeter. And then after doing some of those, and then doing the one at Hereford, I thought I might be reasonably okay at this. And somebody at the Hereford one said, "Why don't you have a go at trying to qualify for Great Britain?" And it sort of all stemmed from there, really.
And did you know anybody that had already sort of like qualified? Were you in a club at that point, or?
No. So by that time, it was I was then living over in Bridge North, which meant sadly I wasn't going over to Halzone as much to train. So just had a look on the BTF website, looked at all the qualification criteria. I guess I did what everybody that gets into this sport does: is you start Googling athletes' names, don't you, to find it?
Well, yeah, that's quite funny, because in my first episode where I was telling you about my story, that's what I encourage people to do, to see what, because at the very outset you want to know sort of like what level you need to be at on the running and the biking, don't you, to see if you've got a realistic chance of actually qualifying. Otherwise you need to work and maybe try the next year, or maybe 2 years, so that's exactly where I was at with it.
You looked at people's times, didn't you, and looked at the results from previous years and tried to find them on the parkrun websites, and just think, what chance do I stand of actually getting a qualification place? And when you looked at it, I thought, yeah, with a bit of effort, this is a possibility. So that would have been, when did I qualify? I qualified in 2016, didn't I? So that must have been summer, autumn time 2015, and set myself a reasonably ambitious training schedule.
And did your training schedule, did you sort that out yourself, or have you been coached?
No, I
other
wasn't
than the athletics, obviously.
Yeah, so the athletics bit, the running bit, I had a pretty good idea of that. And then sort of, I was cycling to work and back at the time, so I tried to build it around that. That was really handy, wasn't it? It was a really, really easy way to keep fit.
Yeah.
Cycling 20 miles each way to work and back, 3 or 4 times a week at least, was quite a good way to maintain a level of fitness. And then realistically, what I ended up doing was just getting the turbo trainer, and all the hard cycling sessions I just did on my turbo trainer, and then try to coincide that with longer rides at weekends out on the road. So did that over the winter between February 15 to 16, and then qualified at Clumber Park in that spring, isn't it? I guess it would have been March.
It was March, wasn't it? Yeah, because I was there as well, actually. I think we'd have been in different. We might have raced. I don't know whether we'd have been in different age categories at that point.
Might have been then. It could have been, couldn't we?
Yeah.
So qualified at Clumber Park, which is quite a tough course, isn't it? Because you've got that steep hill right at the start.
Yeah.
And then back down the steep hill,
yeah.
and then the bike leg was great. Yeah. By that time, I bought myself a proper TT bike. Got a second-hand one from a guy up Harrogate Way somewhere. I remember going up late one night in the dark to go and pick it up, and then But that was also on the back of doing local time trials. By that point, I was doing some clip-on bars on my road bike, just doing some local time trials.
So have you ever had any coaching at all? Are you in a, I wouldn't say a tri club, but are you in a club that does multi-sport at the moment?
No.
It's all self-taught, self-educated.
Yeah.
So where do you tend to find your resources from? Your plans and stuff.
So at the moment, online, really, with the various online apps.
Yeah.
So Zwift and Sufferfest are probably the two ones that are used the most. I'm currently following a plan on Sufferfest, which is great. That's an absolute superb platform, really good. But difficult in that sense. I think when you enjoy sport, there's a sadistic enjoyment, isn't there, out of making yourself suffer some pain, and you get this almost whatever the sort of science is behind it, the endorphin rush, whatever you want to call it. You get that incentive to just try a bit harder. But I am somebody that definitely needs to have a plan. Otherwise, you just mill along, not really doing very, very much.
Yeah, I think we all tend to need some sort of goal, don't we? To a target to hit. And this is why I think. I mean, I love training anyway. To be fair, even if I wasn't, going to go out and aim for a race, I'd still just go and train because I just love doing it. But I think this is where it's difficult now, isn't it? In the times we're at, because we haven't got any goals. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. It's just.
That's right. So if somebody said to you now, well, the various multisport events would definitely be back on in 6 months' time, you'd sit down with a pen and paper, wouldn't you? Or you go online and you find yourself a 6 months training plan and you just tick away. And of course, in that 6 months training plan, you have various events to do, as like your B, not your A race, but your B race events to do in the meantime. And I think that is a challenge for people at the moment. And there's plenty of stuff that you can do in the meantime to sort of get you there. But it is a challenge.
Yeah. So do you, when you look at these plans, I mean, Zwift, it's excellent, I know, because obviously I use it, and you can use, it's got Olympic distances for triathlons and stuff, and all these different plans on there. Do you sit down at the beginning of the year or later, back end of the year? Because obviously duathlons start March, don't they? So it can be quite a long season if you think about it. Do you sit down and plan out what you're going to do over the year, or is it just sort of like ad hoc and?
Yeah, so it's probably not as structured as that. I think there are ordinarily without what's going on at the minute going on, there are a few races each year that I really like to do. So the start of the year is the Hereford. There's any of the qualifying races for Great Britain are usually sort of springtime on there, so I'll take a look at what that for. I really enjoy the Hereford Duathlon, which is April. Storm the Castle, which is over in Ludlow, and that's meant to be it's billed. The many aren't they? Billed is one of the toughest duathlons in the country, and that's fantastic. The backdrop is you finish inside Ludlow Castle, and it's a really, really tough run. You go up this thing called the lactic ladder several times on each lap of the run, which is just a steep off-road set of steps that are just hell, basically just absolute hell. And then coming down off the top of Ludlow Common after is even worse than that, because your legs are just absolutely shot to pieces. So those are sort of springtime races. Then there's the Chester Half Marathon that Kirsty and I do in May. And then realistically, then over the summer, it's just training for the Lake Vermey Half Marathon in September. And yeah, so, and then you by the time that's done, you're into the winter, aren't you? You're just trying to keep reasonably fit over the winter months. And trying to find out where the races might be out and about at the time.
So going back to the qualification, your first qualification, it was Soria. Yeah,
it was. Yeah,
that was your first. We both did that one. We both qualified for that one together.
We did.
And I was just thinking about, we actually, before we even met, we got to sort of like know each other quite well, because you organised the hoodies, didn't you? Because we couldn't get any GB kit. Do you remember?
Yeah. I almost got disqualified. I was in a real panic about that, because that's right, we were trying to organise some unofficial merchandise, weren't we? So through the Facebook group, we were sort of trying to work out a cheaper alternative. So I managed to get some kit lined up, and then I had an email off British Tri saying, well, you shouldn't really be doing that. So I ended up having to speak to them, thinking, please don't disqualify me before I even got there. Which had a paragraph in the rule number from British Triathlon. But that was a good event, wasn't it? If you remember, the weather was awful.
It was terrible. I remember we finished and the standard was starting, and the poor beggars there, they got snow, I believe, when we were sat watching.
Yeah. When we stayed out of the centre of Surrey. We were about a 45-minute drive in this lovely little tiny little village. And when we got there late on whichever evening it was, a few days before, I remember looking out of the window and it had snowed.
Yeah.
There was snow on the barns opposite, you know. It was freezing cold. And, I remember then driving back, stopping at a petrol station when the standard athletes were going out, and it was just blowing a gale, and it was horribly cold. Either weekend of that, the weather was great, but
yeah,
horrendous.
Well, I remember because we went over a viaduct on the bike course, and I remember I had the deep rims on the bike, and I nearly got blew off because it was that gusty.
Yeah.
You know, I was shaken up a bit, to be honest. But no, other than that, it was a really good event, a really good course. I really enjoyed it.
Enjoyed that. Yeah, that was a good. Yeah, that was a really good course, wasn't it? Even though there was a long downhill, wasn't there, and a long uphill, and then switch back, turn around, and come back down the other way. That was a good course. The run course was good as well. Around the centre of the park, wasn't it? So it was zigzagging up and down various little avenues in a park. That was really good.
Good for the spectators, it was, wasn't it?
It was, wasn't it? Yeah.
So after the Sorry experience, you got the bug for it, and what was the what was the story after that then?
Yeah, so after that, so I mean, I got to Surrey and then sort of concentrating more on sort of domestic stuff really. Tried to qualify again the following year at Clumber Park again, but by that point, I think with the accidents that I'd had, I was a bit I'd lost some confidence really on the bike. So I think after that, it was just a matter of just trying to do a few competitions just to get myself back into that world of multi-sport events more than anything else. And then, that was at probably Clumber Park was the first one after that. And that was a disaster because I'd lost my race belt before the start. And so about, crikey, how far? It was like, I put my bike in transition, gone back, had a bit of a jog around, got back to Kirsty, and said, right, can I have my race number? She went, I haven't got it. And I said, no, you've got it. She said, no, I haven't got it. You must have taken it with you when you're out running. And I was like, I haven't got it. And whatever time we were going off 8:30 or something, this was sort of 10:05 past 8 by now. And I hadn't got it. Kirsty hadn't got it. I had to go back into transition to see if I left it there by the bike. It wasn't there. Race back to the car, just on the grass field. 800 metres, wherever it was away, raced over there like a lunatic to empty the car. And why is it that all your kit is always black, isn't it? You just got like a whole car full of black kit. Couldn't find a race belt. The guy next to me didn't have a spare one. Raced back, and fortunately there was a little stall selling kit, and I ran up to this guy in running this store and said, have you got a race belt? He said, yeah. And can I have one? He said, well, they're a tenner. I haven't got any money. I've got no money in my race. I'm due to go for like 3 minutes to go. And he said, promise you'll come back. I said, yeah, I'll come back. So I managed to scrounge a race belt off this guy and literally ran through to the starting pen and through to the start with seconds to go. Yeah. And needless to say, I went off like an absolute rocket. So I was pumped full of adrenaline or excitement.
Yeah. Good warm-up.
And then, good warm-up. And then heading off and turning left over that bridge and up that hill. I'm thinking, that wasn't a particularly good idea to go off that fast. That would be a bit of a disastrous run.
Yeah.
But so
what was our qualification for then? Which race was that? I can't really remember.
That would have been, wouldn't it? So that would have been Ibiza. That would have been qualifying for Ibiza. Yeah. Yeah. So I didn't qualify. So that was a qualification race for Ibiza that I didn't manage to get qualification for.
The famous Ibiza transition on the beach.
Transition on the beach. They got washed away apparently. Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't qualify for that one, and then qualified at Darley Moor racetrack last year for Punter on Beer this year. Yeah.
And how fortunate we were.
Well, I know, you can't believe it, can you? So I think we got back home. We flew home on the Tuesday. We flew home on the Tuesday, and I think they stopped flights in and out of Spain on the Thursday.
Yeah. Very, very lucky to be able to compete in, I think.
Yeah, and it was great, wasn't it? The weather was absolutely fun. We were lucky with the weather. The venue was great. The organisation, I thought, was. I mean, you've done more of these things than I've done, so you'll know more than me. But I thought the organisation was fantastic. It was really, really good. The venue was great, and you just get that. I've often described it as it's like a park run, but competing for your country. It's it's such a welcoming, friendly atmosphere of people willing to help. And I was saying this to the team manager just before what's the name of our team manager?
Rosemary.
What's the guy's name?
Oh, can't remember.
I'll Google it while we're chatting.
I can't remember.
Not Glyn Bevans, is it? Kevin Orchard, is it?
I thought it was Glyn. Was it not Glyn this year?
I'm not sure. I was chatting to him before, and he said exactly the same. He said he just does it because of the enjoyment and the passion that people have and the gratitude people show. And there were a few people there that were new to it and were, as I was the first time I'd done it, really anxious and not knowing what to do. But there's tons of people that aren't there. Anybody will lend a hand.
Yeah.
So all those messages on Facebook in the few days before saying, I've lost my inner tube, I've got a puncture, my rear mech's dropped off. Anybody got some CO2 canister?
There's always lots of events and issues, isn't there?
Exploding tyres, wherever it was on the morning. Somebody's tyre popped off the rim on the morning of the race in the apartment next to us. Yeah. But there's always help, isn't there? And I don't think you really get that in a lot of other sports. No. And it's so anybody that's thinking of doing it, I would strongly encourage them to give it a bash. Yeah. It's fantastic, worthwhile thing to do. If you just do it once, and you never do it again, I'd certainly give yourself a go at doing it.
I think it's just once you've had the sort of got the bug though, it's just something for me anyway. I just want to keep trying to qualify, and we see it as a holiday. So if there's somewhere where we want to go, we'll try and qualify for it and use it as a holiday as well.
That's exactly. I mean, Hunter and Beard, it was ridiculously surreal to think that we competed in the morning. And so the race would have been over and done by whatever time it was, mid-morning. Walked back to the apartments and then made ourselves some lunch, walked across the apartment block and sat on the beach having sandwiches, crisps and a bottle of beer.
Yeah, we were the same. We found a little restaurant on the beach that we'd been to the day before and sat and had a meal and a glass of wine, or a bottle, to be honest. But it's great. They just are great events. So what's your favourite part of multisport then? What do you enjoy the most?
It's probably it's difficult to pick one thing. I think I think because it's hard. I think I like it because it's I like that challenge. I really enjoy that challenge and being able to. So my background is primarily running. Now whether I'd have been a better cyclist than I am a runner if I'd have taken up cycling a bit earlier, you never know, do you? So I really like that the fact that it is multi-sport, and you can try and devote a bit of time to saying I'll try and be a better runner and maybe sacrifice the cycling because that may or may not be your stronger discipline. So I like looking at that. I love from a cycling perspective, I get quite obsessed with the geekiness, if you like, of cycling, about trying to just get free speed, basically, can't you? By looking at the more aerodynamic position you can get on the bike, a bit more kit.
Who doesn't like a bit more kit?
Who doesn't like a bit more kit?
So hints and tips for any multi-sporter listening that haven't qualified but would probably like to. What would you what would you advise that they do?
I think for hints and tips, I think. Believe in yourself. I think that is definitely one of the key things. I think if you're going into this thinking that you might not be able to do it, I'd strongly advise people to honestly have a look at some of the previous results I think that might be achievable without a doubt. You know, there's 20 places per age group, aren't there?
Yeah.
So I think that's, you know, it's for somebody off a reasonable sporting background, I think that is doable. I think if you're coming from one, if you have a preference for one discipline and not the other, then definitely don't be put off by that. If you're a cyclist and you don't particularly run, you know, that I think you'll find that the ability to do both not that difficult. And likewise, if you're running and you never cycle, then give the cycling a go. Definitely find other like-minded people to do it with. You know, through a local club, or through whichever, like, Facebook group, wherever it might be, just to get some encouragement. And follow a plan. Definitely have a plan to try and do it, because if you're anything like me, if you haven't got a plan, you just end up, I could become quite, you know, lethargic without having a training plan. But I think it's doable, you know, and don't get put off by. I remember when don't get put off by what other people have got in terms of kit and gear. You know, I remember when I first started doing it, and you know, you're surrounded by people with massively expensive bikes and kit. You can get quite, certainly for me, I was quite worried by that. But it doesn't make a difference, does it? You know, once you can buy speed, you've still got to be fit enough to be able to do it.
That's absolutely right. Yeah.
Don't get put off by other people having, you know, fancy TT bikes and disc wheels on the back and deep section wheels and all this sort of nonsense, because you still got, you know, like I always say to me, cycling mates, you still got to turn the pedals. You know, you're sitting on the bike, aren't you? You know, so all those bits help. So believe in yourself and give it a go. Good.
Yeah. Wise words. You just mentioned there about sort of like resources and plans and things. So I know we've talked about you've used plans, and obviously you use Zwift and Sufferist. So what other resources and things that do you use, like, you know, and where are they, and how could people find them?
The other resources. I've got my Garmin.
Yeah.
Around there.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's a good thing, isn't it? You know, and I think you can definitely, through other bits and pieces online, you know, looking at there's various things on YouTube, aren't there? Stuff like this, you know, YouTube channels and various podcasts to give people some stuff. A lot of online platforms now have got things like this where they give video tutorials. So that's really good.
Anything specific?
The one I sometimes have a look at is Triathlon&Duathlon. He's quite on YouTube. That's quite
Canadian guy.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. He's quite good.
Yeah.
So that's quite a good one. And the British Triathlon website has got. It's one of these things. Maybe I'll start to do it now. I've got a bit more time on my hands, maybe. But the British Triathlon website has got tons of resources on there. When you actually sort of delve into that, and the amount of stuff they've got on there is quite surprising. You know, in terms of what they've got as for free, basically, as a member on there.
Yeah.
Just have a look on there. That's another good resource. And then I think there's also something else about one of my old running mates, Billy Knock, who's fantastic runner, run for England, and he's a top athlete. And he very rarely trains with a watch. He very rarely trains with anything at all. And I bet, I haven't seen it for ages, but I bet he doesn't have a GPS watch. He just runs on feel. So I think once we have all of these things that can tell us what our minute per mile or minute per kilometre pace is when we're out training, and you get obsessed when you go segment hunting on Strava, or you look at how many watts you've done when you've done your bike ride. There's absolutely something to just sometimes just run or cycle without looking at any of that information, and just go out there and enjoy it. And I've always said to my kids and to everybody that the thing that I just enjoy sport. Yeah. You know, I love running and I love cycling and being outdoors. The fact that I'm half decent at it is an absolute bonus. I'd absolutely sacrifice any kind of, club level success for wanting to enjoy it. If I had to choose enjoyment over success, I'd choose enjoyment any day of the week.
Yeah.
Without a shadow of a doubt. Because if you think about when we were in Punta Umbria, we didn't win any medals. Not we were wherever it was where we finished was wherever we were. But I massively enjoyed that. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And if I'd been first in your age group, but you wouldn't enjoy it as much, I'd have sacrificed first in my age group for having the enjoyment I had from it. So and just enjoy it. It's probably the biggest thing. Just make sure you enjoy it.
Excellent. Yeah, that's good advice. Good advice. So finally, I know you've just mentioned the Garmin watch, but what's your favourite piece of equipment and why?
Favourite bit of equipment. Let's think of something that's not data related then.
It could be anything.
Maybe a bit of kit.
Yeah.
Got to be my Nike Vaporfly running shoes.
Right.
Go with those.
Are they the 0% or the 4%? 4%
4% plus.
4% plus.
Whatever the next percent, aren't they?
No,
you've got the 4%. Then you've got the one which give you a fraction more advantage. So I bought into the hype of those, and they are really good. But of course, now everyone's got them.
Yeah. Any
advantage that clients have got, he's not.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean they look pretty cool as well. We were trying to get hold of a pair because they're releasing some new ones, and I don't know whether it's because of the current times at the moment, but they're just keep saying coming soon on the website. So, but when they come out, I nearly bought a pair. I was so close, and then I decided that I went for the Hoka Carbon instead because I was only going to use them for like a long running shoe. So I decided I'd go for the Hoka Carbon, which is a similar sort of thing but half the price. But I think when the others come back in stock, we'll punt for a pair and see what all the fuss is about.
Yeah, but that's something I love data, so I love all my sort of techno stuff and all that, my power meter, my bike, and all that sort of gubbins. Yeah. But sometimes, like I was saying, it's just good to just go back to basics, isn't it? I mean, I've still got running t-shirts when I was 17, 18.
Yeah, and I think
I'm still wearing kit that's
what more of a perfect opportunity at the moment to go out and just run, because you're not training for anything, or go out and just cycle. And me and Kate were out this morning, and we went out for an hour and 15 minutes around just local,
Kirsty and I will often, if we're on holiday in particular, we'll just do run walks, so we'll just go for a stick of rucksack on our back and just stick some water in that and a bit of food, and you'll run a mile, walk a mile, run a mile, walk a mile. It's a fantastic way to cover a fair amount of distance, and have a pleasant bit of fitness and activity into it.
Cool. Well, thank you ever so much for being the first guest on this.
Okay.
Yeah, you're the first one. Yeah.
Can you take my black crunchy twang?
Well, I don't think it's any worse than my accent, to be honest. It's really weird listening to yourself on and trying to get cringeworthy, but no. So thanks for doing this. Again, it's just for a bit of fun and filling my time.
So where is it? Which platform is it going to be on then?
It's already, the first one's already out because I did myself to begin with. I
saw the trailer, but when I clicked on play, it didn't play. That's probably because I was trying to play it through Facebook. So is it on?
So if you
Spotify,
it's on iTunes and several of the others. Right. But so the trailer's on there. Episode 1's now out and on there.
Excellent.
And that's just basically me talking about my experiences and stuff.
Nice, okay.
And then you're the second episode proper, if you like. So thank you ever so much. Is there anything else you want to add? We never talked about your duathlons that you're doing on Zwift, did we? How did that come about?
It's a bit like, I guess, you doing something like this, isn't it? It's just a bit of harmless fun. People with need to try and get that race bug and just stick in a few events on once a week on a Saturday. trying to keep to our allowed out of the house once, and a running event, and then a Zwift event, and that's got some interest, hasn't it? Just a bit of a motivation for people, really.
Yeah. How many people have you got? Or how many people did you start doing, and how many have you got now? Has there been a big uptake?
Or? On the Facebook group, there's 160 people in the Facebook group, and then each weekend there's usually around about 12 or 15 people end up doing it.
Yeah.
And which is fine, isn't it? And it doesn't matter whether there's 5 or 105.
No.
If people are enjoying it and having a bit of fun doing it.
Yeah.
And Andy Biggs yesterday, he put a video up of him. He managed to salvage all of his out of his garage. He'd got all of his Tri Club's banners. So he'd set himself up in his garage or wherever where he's got his bike. He got his own check-in desk, next to his dining table, garage in his table, wherever it was, and he did a little video of that. Yeah, it's just a bit of fun, isn't it? Give people a bit of incentive just to do something where you feel like you're having a bit of a blowout on a Saturday morning.
Yeah, I think it was fantastic idea. Really, really inspiring to get people still together. Well, I mean, it stemmed from the ride you were doing, wasn't it? And get people together.
Yes, we did the ride leading up to the event. I think we had a social ride last week, and that was on Zoom, wasn't it? On a little video thing, and that was really nice. Being able to see people, have a chat, and a bit of banter, and a bit of a laugh. And I think that's like we were saying earlier about anybody who's interested in doing it. It can be quite daunting, I think, can't it? When you're not involved in a sport at whatever level it is, that you think it might be a bit elitist, whatever that sport might be, and it can be. I think some people can be really concerned about that, but it really isn't. I'm yet to find anybody that I've competed with or chatted to or shared some time with in running or cycling that is in the slightest bit elitist. I just don't think that's the case, and that goes from people competing to the spectators to the officials and the marshals who give up all of their free time to help. It's genuinely not. So I think if anybody's thinking of doing it and think they're not, well, if they're not going to be good enough, then I'm sure they will be. And if they think they're not going to fit in, it's a bit elitist. It definitely isn't. There's a whole mix of people, aren't there, from a whole mix of backgrounds who are doing it for all different sorts of reasons. Yeah. And yes, there's people doing it because they want to be competitive, they want to win. And there's other people who are doing it just because it's a bit of fun, and it's really good.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, again, thanks ever so much.
Cheers, buddy.
Cheers, mate. Bye. Bye. What a nice bloke Nick is. I would recommend following Nick on Facebook and having a go at his virtual duathlons he organises on Zwift, which take place on a Saturday morning between 10 and 12. And go and find his Facebook page, The Virtual Duathlon, and have a go. So that's the second episode done. If you enjoyed it, spread the word in our Multisport community and let people know about AMP. Please subscribe, rate and comment on Apple Podcast and Spotify. And you can find us on Twitter at AMP, Instagram at AMP_1967 and Facebook at AMPGB. And you can also email us Agegroup Multisport Podcast at gmail.com. All lowercase. It's for multisport athletes, by multisport athletes. Stay safe, keep training, love the process, and we'll see you next time.